Santander. Joining him will be Matevž Frangež, State Secretary at the Ministry of Economy, Tourism and Sport, Ms. Jana Apih, Director of Green Destinations, Ms. Astrid Steharnig-Staudinger, the CEO of Austria Tourism, and Dr. Slavko Ažman, Head of Business Management at Porsche Slovenija. Big round of applause for all of them, please.
For the excellent presentation, and let me just link back to what you said. You said that Europe will need to decide whether we want to be the first or the best, which I found really nice. How would you say are we really doing on the EU level? I mean, would you say that tourism in Europe is a success story, and in particular, to what extent do you think that is translated in what we want at the end in terms of social impact, in terms of quality of life of the people? And also, you said we want to rebrand ourselves. Where do you see the biggest opportunities on that front? Where so that we're listening to you, you have a good overview in terms of Europe. We also kind of see you as an organization to kind of pull strings together. What would you recommend to us?
Thanks, Peter. Can you hear me now? So, I'm a fan of simplicity, okay? I'm gonna try to simplify also because I was really taking so many notes about your presentation because, the mix of economic data and tourism and geopolitical transformation, demographic transformation is key to understand tourism. But I'm going to simplify it in another way. According to ChatGPT, the most famous dish in Slovenia is potica, right? Well, let's take potica as an example. It's a symbol of family, tradition, hospitality. Every family does it in a different way. Every region puts different things inside, with different sauces. So a little bit like tourism. Everybody does it a little bit different, but in the end, everybody likes potica. Now, I'm going to allow myself, Peter, to give a little bit of a recipe for what I think the European potica should be for the next decade to come. Because it requires a lot of factors that I made a little distillation for your presentation, making my notes here. First of all, and I know many other speakers will talk about it, but we have to start certified and monitor scientifically. You cannot claim that you are the most sustainable, the most accurate in that and that of the other, the most visited. That doesn't work. We need to find formulas of harmonizing measurement. We're working on that at the European level. It's tough. It's very tough, to get all those databases, streamlined in a way that we can, use them. Second, and you mentioned, cultivate the workforce. From nothing comes nothing. And we know that very well. And you mentioned the issue of yield in the end. I mean, tourism has to become much more effective. The transformation has to create more value in a way that we can pay people better. It's not rocket science. People need to be treated better, of course, but at the end of the day, they also have to pay a rental or pay a mortgage or have a living. Third ingredient for this Santander's potica: prioritize communities. It's being clear that this, for first time in history, rejection of tourism comes from a very fragile base. Is that in that triangle of visitor, resident and entrepreneur, we're lacking a common ground. A common ground that I think the NTO could fill. The government should fill, with dialogue platforms and consultation process. Fourth ingredient, line visitors. For a period of time, we always were prescribing. This is what you're going to see in Slovenia. This is what you see in Bled. We have to align. We have to ask them first, what they expect. What is going to be, what is really what they want to do. And this requires a lot of data too, by the way. Needless to say that we have in that ingredient a pinch of salt. We have to protect our heritage and nature. We have to produce and consume responsibly. This is something that, the famous greenwashing claims is something that is starting to be regulated. Calibrate infrastructure. I was making the joke with the road to Bled, but it's true that we have many bottlenecks. The aviation talks a language, they increase capacity in the air, but boom, then you arrive to the airport and there's no capacity, or there's not enough taxis, there's not enough ground transportation. The old cities remain the little medieval places, little squares, so they don't grow with their capacity. Eighth ingredient is govern effectively, looking at obviously our politicians. It says we need this to be a long-term investment, Peter, and long-term investment take a lot of bravery, it takes a lot of guts to say I'm not doing that for my next elections, I'm doing that for my people in the next 2-3 decades. And you know, as we live in this, how do they call it today in the media, perma-crisis, I like that word, is that we need to embed resilience all the time in what we're doing, because whatever we're doing can be shaky within seconds. And this has to be based in, of course, economic changes, social changes, environmental changes, cultural changes, that we cannot mention some of them, Peter. How are we doing it in Europe? It's just trying to create a platform of dialogue. I think the period is over of working in silos and working only, you know, like Austria competes with Slovenia for, you know, there's enough tourism for everybody. It's time to share the cake. And maybe to just wrap it up a little bit, we have, because you mentioned demographics, and this is something that on top of the lightning and thunderstorms in Bled, the things that keeps me awake is the change of demographics in Europe. We are in a demographic winter. We know the baby boomers are starting to stop traveling. There was the one that built Europe after the war. There was wealth, there was like built state, you know, people had properties. Now the young people don't have two basic human needs, which is access to employment, or employment with dignity, and access to housing. If we don't cover these issues, we'll have many problems to come. They will come through social reaction, but not only about tourism, about economic elites, about, you know, and there will be uprising. We see it in the political landscape, you know, with every parliament being now a rainbow parliament, like of impossible coalitions just to keep the status quo going, but that will not last. At a certain point, this will collapse, and we will have to reinvent Europe. Coming back to your presentation there, we need to look a lot into the workforce. Human interactions are everything in this industry. Unless we take care of that, you know, we will start seeing the crumbles falling from a system that has been feeding and making, you say, is rural thing, tourism in Slovenia and Austria and many other places. But it's not only rural, it's small and medium-sized enterprises driven. 85% of European tourism entrepreneurship is small and medium-sized enterprises, mostly micro enterprises, family-owned businesses. So how do we care about them? Is through this capillarization of platforms of cooperation. Accor, Hilton, Airbnb, Booking, they don't need our help. They'll find their lawyers to always navigate regulation and so on. But the little hotel in the hill of Bled over there, when he or she is confronted, you know, to a transformative process, he needs the help, or she needs the help to transform. So how do we do is to use the resources more to the people that need it most.
Thank you. Just to make clear, I'm actually quite an optimist in terms of potential for Slovenia, because I think we are quite lucky in terms of, you know, where things are going in the medium to long term, because people will be asking for what we can potentially offer. So just to make clear that, you know, it's Jana, I want to go next to you. Eduardo said, you know, Eduardo's potica, maybe we should remember that. And he also said, you know, what do people want? Because what people want, that's what they're willing to pay for. And presumably, one would argue that sustainability is one of those things. And in particular, I think, among the youth, which should give us kind of, you know, optimism again, that things will be going strongly in that direction. But is that something that you see in practice, sustainability being something that we build on as an opportunity, that we create value on, that we charge it for? Or is there more of a greenwashing, you know, like don't throw the towel so that on the floor so that I don't need to wash them?
on more level. Sorry. Well, I think it's on a little bit more levels. You know, the problem with sustainability, it's not the problem, but the fact is that the destinations who need sustainable management are the ones with the bigger problems, are the ones who have, you know, who we are seeing now on TV that protest against tourism, and that is actually the reality on the result that they were not managed in a sustainable way, that they didn't think about what the volume of tourism we actually want, how should we manage it, who we should attract, and so on. So this happens. So the biggest need of managing destinations is where they're in sustainable world, is where the biggest problems are. And that is also where it is the hardest to do. So, and I think that we are a little bit past that thinking that sustainability is something I become more sustainable. I get a label and I will get, you know, that will be my marketing opportunity. I hope we are getting past that and we are understanding sustainability as a must and something that we need to embed in all the levels of our management. Either it's a destination or it's a business, it doesn't matter, because if we don't do that, then all the problems that tourism also brings, it brings a lot of added value, it brings a lot of, you know, opportunities, especially in regions where it's needed, but it brings a lot of issues and problems and pressures. And if they're not managed in the right way, if they're not managed sustainably, then these problems really arise. And this transformation that we are talking about, you know, how to do that. One thing, the tricky part with transformation is that if you really do a transformation, there's no going back. And this is a problem where we are always many times are doing. Yeah, we go in this direction, if it works, we follow it. If we don't, we go back. But with transformation, you know, transforming means that you change. You cannot go back anymore. And that is where the problem actually begins, when people are understanding that and they go as far to one extent. So that was one of, like, you know, is a certification one-time thing that I achieve and that's it. It's not, you know, certification, it's a tool which helps you move forward and make you grow. So is it a sustainability something that adds value? Of course it does, because it teaches destinations and businesses what's important, you know, how to protect your nature, how to invite guests in, and how to bring them closer to the culture and all those things, and, you know, protect your nature. But the one thing that I think we are really not talking enough, it's about the local communities. We need to understand that tourism occupies space of locals. You know, it's not just a space of a hotel room or a hotel lobby, but it's a space of the whole city. And this is where the problems began, because if this destination is not managed sustainably, means that it's not done hand in hand with the locals who say, no, this is enough, I don't want to have so many people on my streets, this is my city. Then all this happens again. You know, and I really believe that tourism should think about the next step beyond even sustainability in the regenerative way, thinking about how can tourism play a positive role in solving local problems and issues that destinations have, and be an active partner in that, not a partner who says, I want to build a hotel here and I want to bring so many people in, what do you think? And people will say, well, maybe we don't like it so much, and, you know, nothing will happen, still the hotel will be built. This is how we usually involve our locals. But if we think about it when we manage and when we make plans, think about, okay, what can tourism bring to this destination? Is there a problem that it can solve? And that can only be done in cooperation with the local stakeholders, with locals, really locals, who need to be at the same table. Otherwise, we are just occupying the space without a permit. And I think that's a really big problem. And then we advertise our destinations on global markets, showing beautiful pictures, and then people come there, they're totally crowded, and they don't get the experience that they paid for and that we promised to them, because it's not done hand in hand. And that's where we are losing. You know, you can invite someone for the first time with a beautiful picture, and it comes, it's disappointed, he will not come again. So we need to be, sustainability has so many layers. It's so easy to talk about it, but to really think about it and understand it, where and what we need to do, it's a completely different thing.
I really like that you mentioned this local dimension. For the second round, think about the relationship between local and regional, because I'll challenge you on that one. But you said that you said, I hope that we are now beyond that point so that we believe that sustainability is an opportunity, creates value. Maybe we should ask people, what is sustainability in tourism? More of an opportunity or more an administrative cost? A bit of exercise, please. Who thinks that it's more of an opportunity?
It's standard.
Even better. So you think we're asking the wrong question?
Yes.
Okay, good point. We'll catch up. I agree, although if you look at the numbers and you ask firms this very question, our performance in Slovenia, we are much worse than the leaders in terms of to what extent do we see opportunity in sustainability. So I would say this is how it should be, but in fact the numbers do not support it. But let's continue. Thank you, Jana, for now. Can I move now to Mr. Slavko Ažman? You come from mobility sector, Porsche Slovenija. And mobility is, let's draw some light on the relationship between the mobility and the tourism sector. If one reads this, analysis in terms of what what can have a really profound impact on tourism, is the mobility sector. For example, aviation is part of the EU emissions trading system already. There is almost no impact now on the airfares, but that is expected to change even in the short run, up until 2020-30. So, how do you see the role of and the future, indeed, of mobility? Do you see that there could be, given all the electrification and discussion, etc. Do you think there could be an impact on affordable and accessible tourism? And I'm targeting here in particular, we have tourism that now basically is about moving a lot of people around. Do you think there will be an impact on that? Please.
Thank you. I'm coming from mobility sector, but I'm also coming from Bled. I live in Bled, so I had the opportunity to walk to this venue. I had a little to run a little bit, because I'm embarrassed to say I managed to show up at the wrong venue. But nevertheless, I think everybody else that had to come to Bled from other places, if you were not accompanied by police cars, you have pretty good idea what the traffic situation in Bled is. Tourism and mobility are really interconnected. They are highly interdependent, and after all, going places, that's basically what tourism is, and I'm really convinced that there's no sustainable tourism without sustainable mobility. So that's really important. And also the question that you asked me about the prices of international flights. I'm not so sure that that's a negative thing. It might be a blessing in disguise, to be honest, because I'm not so sure that the mass tourism that it's dependent on this kind of transportation is really compatible with other more desirable types of tourism. For example, there has been mentioned a special wake-up call. That's for our guests about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. Usually that's young tourists coming from bars, and I think that's not exactly something that is really compatible with other types of tourism. But just one of one of these aspects that probably also has to be considered.
Thank you, and that would indeed be completely compatible with our strategy, wouldn't it, Mr. Frangež, State Secretary for Tourism. In our strategy it says green boutiqueness. It seems that everything that the strategy that the Slovenian tourist organization is doing is pressing on the right buttons, from sustainability, niche, high value, etc. But do you see that there is a gap between the strategy and the good wishes, the ambition, and the practice that we do? And how could we address that gap? How could we make tourism sector more competitive while staying true to our values? And in particular, if indeed you agree that the strategy and the things that we're doing do go in the right direction, to what extent perhaps should be reorganized? Is the governance part of the problem? Where do you see where are the biggest, where is the weak link of the way how we approach tourism promotion? Please.
Peter, when talking to you, it's always about the ecosystem. You mentioned the good connectivity, the good connections between our businesses. And yes, in Slovenia we have several ecosystems, even in the field of tourism. Every tourist subsector is well organized, either within the chamber, either within the, let's say, professional organizations. We have a very active and massively organized Touristic Association of Slovenia. So this is very important in order to build a culture. Because, Dominic, is it really that sustainability is a standard? Something that everyone bets on? Or should we think that it is actually an advantage we have to build on? Not only because we will be able to attract better guests, but because it is within our culture. So it's not a question of regulations, it is a question of building culture. Hospitality is culture. Inclusiveness is culture. Peace is culture. And what is culture other than set of values we are talking about in this panel? So, and I truly believe Slovenian Tourist Board does a remarkable job. Maya, all compliments to you and your team, to all the ecosystem, the regional agencies, the destination management throughout the country. And when you promote Slovenia on the global stage with your magnificent campaigns, you also promote culture inwards. So I think the most strategic question actually we have ahead of ourselves, and you said it is crucial to ask the right question, is actually, you remember, the titles in global newspapers a few years ago, maybe a decade ago, saying Slovenia, Europe's best kept secret, Europe's most hidden gem. So the question is how to remain a hidden gem while attracting the world to discover our secrets. How to further build our inclusiveness while building our exclusiveness. One of the industry experts before this panel told me an interesting fact. He could sell the room in this hotel for 1,000 euros a night. We are selling it for what? 250 euros a night. And this is also the question that you believe is crucial, and I totally agree with you. The productivity. 8% growth in productivity of the tourist sector, both in companies as well as among self-employed. But still, what, we are a half of the national average, 1/3 of national average when we're talking about the productivity per capita, per employee among the self-employed. So the gap is huge. And I think that a part of the story, and I think we have a tremendous story, and the world is eager to hear it, we have to concentrate on 3 things. First, infrastructure. The last big investment cycle in Slovenian tourism ended nearly 15 years ago. Yes, we've put a lot of measures in place to actually build smaller boutique accommodations throughout the country with the measures recently. And by the way, 65% of the newcomers are visiting those boutique accommodations. But let's look at this beautiful hotel. 20 years, it's a venue of Bled Strategic Forum. And I'm not sure that it changed in these 2 decades. So it's an investment. And please do not count that the state using its funds will incentivize the investment of the private sector. Furthermore, we know that we have a high percentage of state-owned companies in the sector. If they do not invest, please open those hotels as a platform for private initiative. On these panels, a few years ago, we discussed this open question. Why don't you open the national state-owned infrastructure also for a mixed private-public initiative in order to boost the look and feel of those capacities? Second, but what we are preparing, and please remember, in January, Minister was very successful in building 1 billion euros of returnable loans under very good conditions, with moratoriums, good interest rates, to boost investment also in tourist sector. Second, it's about content. And I think that we see a huge improvement with a lot of activities. You know that we are an outdoor mega power. However, those activities can really enrich the visit of our guests. And I think that there is a lot of potential to develop new experiences. So, content, it is either nature, outdoor activities, sport, culture, history, food, wine, people and their stories. This is the content we have to have in mind, and I think that looking at the 3 elements I see as essential in this content, we are performing very well, but there is still gap to fill. And the third one, to conclude, and it was mentioned before, people. It is absolutely essential to boost the productivity in the sector in order to attract a talent working in the sector. I was mentioning ecosystem on the beginning, and I truly believe we don't have a strategic research innovation partnership in the sector of tourism. Why do we need it, Mr. Dr. Rosner? Because this is the best possible tool to boost collaboration focused on innovation. And we know that because of sustainability, because of digitalization, because of the need to of everlasting continuation, presentation of the user designed and centered experience, we need this innovation within the the sector. So I would really call that the sector should organize, that we together find a way to build a strategic research innovation partnership in the tourist sector. Sorry for being long.
Yeah, you'll get a short and second one. But I couldn't agree with you more. I think the fact that the strategic research innovation partnership has not been approved by the government was a strategic mistake, and I couldn't agree more.
It wasn't a question of approval; it was a question of other approval.
As the case may be, bottom line, I think it can really contribute. Second comment. I'm afraid that the Slovene tourist organization has been too successful, so I think that we're probably not a hidden gem anymore. So I think we'll need to move beyond that. But thank you for that, Matevž. And I'm really glad that we have Astrid here from the Austrian tourist organization. Why? Well, because it seems that you seem to be, because State Secretary says, we have this culture and we have all these organizations, etc. We even have a good strategy, we talk, etc. The problem seems to be that when it comes to action, when it comes to one has to put the money out, we tend to go each in own direction again. And that's something, and I'm not talking about tourism in particular necessarily here, from what I collaborated with Austrian stakeholders, there is this tendency that once you agree something, you tend to stick to it. How do you do it?
Dobar dan. Jaz sem zelena. Dobrodošli. I will be short and I will be positive, okay? Austria is a very, very successful tourism country. I mean, we are among the most successful. I think we are now in the top 8 in Europe and top 15 in the world. That's great. We have 154 million overnights. Also great. We have new markets, it's rising. Even we had a bad July, it was raining, still it's rising. But that's not enough. It's not only about sustainability, but in Austria we have actually a strategy, yes, but strategy are only good when they are implemented, because otherwise in every country we have a lot of papers. And we are talking a lot about problems, we talk a lot about sustainability, we have to implement. And now we have a huge actually participation process, because we have a new government in Austria. But it's not changing so much, so that's a good thing. But we have a huge participation process for the framework of the tourism strategy. That doesn't mean that we have to follow it. We are only a small part, but the framework is about employees, workforce. It's about AI strategy for whole Austria tourism. Because workforce, if we sell our nice pictures worldwide, and if we welcome our guests, but we have no labor and no employees who are friendly and work in tourism with passion, we will lose. In Austria, our salaries rise 37% the last 3 years in tourism. Our costs of energy are tremendous. So we have many overnights, but the hotels itself and all the industry does not earn that much as it should. So we have to be very cautious about overnight stays, and we are not going into our press conference and talking about wonderful overnights or records. We are not allowed to say record anymore. Even our state secretary, we don't do it, our regions don't do it, our destinations, because we have to be very cautious with this word. So, but still we have the strategy process with the participation of 9 regions. We have more than 200 destinations in Austria. We have actually 90,000 stakeholders when it comes to tourism. So we have a lot to cover. And when this Vision T is done, the regions and we as Austria Tourism are the coordinators to implement it. But as you can imagine, we are a federalistic state. Every region has its own tourism law. Every region has its own city tax, and so on and so on. But still, we in the last 2 years we really implemented a few projects on a national level with all the 9 regions and with all our stakeholders in the back, and that makes us very proud. One of them is the gastronomic culinary strategy. You have it for a longer time, but I don't know how you did it. We really involved all farmers, winemakers, restaurants, cooks, chefs, hoteliers, regions, destinations, and it took us 1.5 years, but still we stand behind it and we receive very good feedback. But it takes so long, and now we are in the implementation process. So I think the key is the collaboration, not to take us so important, just work on it and implement those things. And we have many platforms to talk to our regions and to talk to our destinations. We have a destination network, we have a regions network, and we as a Austria Tourism are for the orchestra, like you said, somebody has to orchestrate it. Or lead it, even though they are not my shareholders, and I'm not the shareholder of the regions. I receive the money from the Ministry of Economy and from the Chamber of Commerce, and the regions have their own budget, they can do whatever. But when we bundle our budgets, we are stronger, and that's the way of Austria and how we try to do it now, even though it's a challenge.
Excellent. I think on gastronomy, etc., as a Slovenian tourist, I think we're doing quite well. I think that's something that so it's not like, I said, we can do stuff, but we can do better. And probably one of the path, one of the things on that path is, I think that at least that goes in my conclusion, at least, no overnight stays records, forbidden word. That's very good, because that changes the thinking, and I think I appreciate that very much.
And also maybe by law, since last year we have a measurement of tourism acceptance. Now we got the first results, so only 7% in Austria of the locals are against tourism, only 7%. We renew this measurement every year, so also we can pull it down on the regions, and we know where it's more, where it's less. Sustainability is a standard and should be a standard. We talk about it, and we have to talk about it positive. For many people, sustainability is a negative word. It's not negative. It should be a standard. I mean, Austria, we are in the 3rd place in Europe when it comes to sustainable travel index. So we are on the right path. But we have to include the locals. There are many initiatives in Austria to include the locals with employee cards, with really incentives for employees, not only for the guests, but for employees. That's also the key to include on a social way the inhabitants. Yeah.
Which links very nicely to what Jana said before, which I will challenge now. You mentioned, it's this local level and the perception and attitudes. And I'll use the analogy from the food processing industry, right? Here in Slovenia, we have these stars in food processing industry, which are small firms, super successful, with differentiated products, it's through the roof. And I call them Tina Mazes of our industry. But that's not enough if you want to really pull your whole country forward. It's not enough to have super champions if they're rare. And that I think is one of the challenges for tourism as well. We obviously, as everyone does, we have superstar tourism providers. But how do we go beyond that? This is not a one-off. How do we enlarge even on the local level? Probably we have very good examples. But how do we enlarge? How do we go beyond that? How do we make this value on the destination level, on the regional level? And that's something that you said before, we're not attentive enough about what's going on at the local level. Although at the local level, my feeling is, tell me if I'm wrong, that we're actually, the relationships there, at least in Slovenia, are quite positive. And I think the attitudes on the local level towards tourism, I would assume, are quite positive. Might be wrong though. But isn't it the case that we should do more to kind of connect it on a broader level? And I think Austria here serves as a good example, because this multi-level coordination approach that they have an inbuilt one, that's something that we don't. How would you say
Yeah,
that?
well, I agree. We are not yet there with the problem. First, we just answered that question, but I was still surprised the other day. I walked in Ljubljana with Košek, and there is already a graffiti, tourists go out. So obviously those are signs.
Where in Ljubljana?
In Ljubljana. So yeah, you know, we don't have the really big problem, but you can still see some. Really, I have a friend living in Bled, and you know, every time going to Ljubljana, she stands in the queue, and it's not sure if she will be able to get on the bus from Ljubljana to Bled in the summertime, and so on. So this is again back to infrastructure. So we have indications that there can be problems, and we need to be super cautious about that and have them in mind and look into them. Not only just, we also do through Slovenia Green surveys between inhabitants, and we measure that temperature where it is, but still, do we do enough? Do we react enough? That's, I think, still a different question. But when it comes to integration on all the levels, we are talking about values today and how sustainability is our value. If that would really be completely the case, we would not have to talk about why don't all the businesses go into sustainability and follow that path. So obviously,
well, some people think we're talking about the wrong thing.
No, it is. I believe that. I completely agree with
I'm challenging because I think, let's go in that direction. I
completely agree that sustainability is a standard, and we should embed it more as a standard and not so much as a choice. You know, that is the fact, because otherwise, if it's a choice, then I say, oh, well, I don't want to engage in all the bureaucracy. I don't want to change things. You know, it's okay. I'm barely already. You said it yourself. You know, the margins, the earnings in tourism sector are not big. So why invest again in something which I don't know what kind of return on investment it will bring back to. So it should be a standard. It should be more integrated in our categorization. It is very much embedded in all the tenders when somebody wants some kind of access to funding and so on. This should be probably even more. We should work on values, which was said before. I completely agree with that. Obviously, our values are not there where we want them. Otherwise, we would not be talking about that. So that's one thing, and the other thing is like really integration. And the third thing is I always think that if you start to put so much legislation, like for example the EU directives on green transition and green claims which didn't come through, sometimes I tend to feel like that, like that kid in the class who is creating problems, and then because one kid in the problem is creating problems, then the whole class will get punished. That analogy, and sometimes you feel that way, that a lot of destinations, businesses are doing it right. They're not doing the greenwashing. They're doing it right. They're following the certification programs which are looking into things, and things are solid. But, of course, some people, there is abuse of that, and because of that, everybody now needs to completely change the way of, when it comes to certifying and so on. So this is, and the other thing in this aspect, which I think is super important, is instead of maybe, always using the stick, to use the carrot more often. And if you build enough positive motivation about the goal that you want to achieve, it will be much easier to achieve it. Like, for example, in Slovenia Green, the good effect was like, when we started and we tried to bring the destinations in, at one point it changed, and it was like, if I'm not in, I'm out. So, it builds so much momentum around it and make it so appealing and so much more to link it to so many other benefits, also promotional benefits and so on. Then people started to look at it from a different angle. It becomes a motivation of something, okay, yeah, everybody's doing it, I should look into it. Maybe it's not such a big deal, such a problem, because many times, especially businesses, was like, I'm not even going to look into that, it's too much. There is hard to build that momentum of being, willing to do an extra step. So it has more layers. It has like things that we can do, things that how we build our culture, how we integrate that as a standard in our operation, and how we motivate our businesses and destinations to be part of that and make it like super attractive in that space. And I'm always saying that sustainability is not sexy. It should be more we should present it as a sexy option and more appealing one. And we are not able to do that. It's still like facts and papers to write and so on. So, you know, just twist it a little bit maybe can change things.
Let me build towards, you know, the optimistic scenario. If there is one industry in Slovenia that understands the importance of sustainability, it's tourism. So before we said no overnight state records anymore, perhaps, you know, the next conclusion is sustainability as a choice, no more. Right? I mean, maybe we should stop. That's one of the things. You know. Okay, good. We have two conclusions because that's something I need to do at the end, so it's very helpful. Thank you. If we concluded this on sustainability front, can I now move to the digital front? Astrid, back to you. You know, in all, you know, your high rankings and performance, what does digital transformation play in what your tourism providers are going after, how understand what's going on, how do you help them out, to what extent collaborative models are important on that front? Please.
On the one hand, we are responsible to communicate Austria worldwide, but on the other hand, the last years we actually have our own
field,
own area. Only focusing on innovation, digitalization, sustainability and green transition to help our tourism partners out. So we have many platforms to do that. First of all, we founded a data space, for example. We collect data from many businesses to help our tourism partners in some cases. For example, if there's a hotspot, Instagrammable hotspot, and the region doesn't know why, we helped them out to find out why. It was actually an easy thing, because it only was the bus was wrong in the wrong times. So now they have not this problem that many tourists are on the spot. So with these small little things, we help the tourism branch. We have a huge data dashboard for our observing our guest motives. Why do they come? When do they come? We focus on a year-round destination strategy now, so we do not implement winter campaigns or summer campaigns. We are 5 days on. Why? Because in our off-peak season we have now approximately 25% already of our guests, so it's quite good and it's rising, and that's why we are focusing more on spring and autumn and not on our winter and summer. My cable car and ski lift companies are not very amused about that, but we do that because it helps us to balance also the tourism from different countries. That's why it's also very important to not only to do communication in Europe, but also in India, in China, in US market, because they travel at different times and you don't have them all at one place. That's the one thing. So we do a lot in tourism, in platforms. We do a lot in green transition support. We are one of the first countries in Europe that we certify destinations with our Umweltzertifikat. We have now 11 destinations certified and many others. But we are more responsible to communicate that we are good, this positive thing. Not greenwashing, but somehow we have to have those best practices to show it to the world. And that's what we are doing together with our branch. And the third big thing is AI strategy for the tourism. That we help, we did a lot. We do every week like knowledge transfer with platforms, but for example we implemented an AI avatar. It was actually a pilot project. For example, tourism regions can use this AI avatar. Instead of a person sitting there the whole day, the AI avatar would answer all questions. Now we tested it in the first regions, and the translation is in 170 languages, so it's really good. So with those small bits and pieces, but the regions and the hotels have to understand what we do. We cannot do on theoretical basis and on our meta basis. So that's why we are going very deeply into the speak easy and do it easy, because AI for us, it's all overwhelming. And a hotel has no time to do everything, everyday AI challenges or whatever. So we have to help them. That's our duty and our task.
The reason why I have this face is because these are the kind of problems that the tourism industry was trying to solve via the Strategic Research Innovation Partnership in 5 plus years ago. Great. Just to say, these are the practical things that, jointly everybody benefits when the country systemically goes in that direction. I'd love to ask you more on AI, but I'm afraid we don't have time. Just to say that all the panelists will be with us, will stay with us, so that we can ask further questions, I hope. Because I think these kind of things are really, can be inspirational for our future thinking. Which brings me to our future thinking, Mr. Frangež. We are now at the cusp of, the EU is negotiating the next financial perspective. Slowly, Slovenia will start to prepare and think about what our priorities will be. What is the kind of vision that you will put on the table if you will have a chance? What I mean by that is if these discussions will start soon enough, because we have elections next year. What would be things that you would put on the table, and also so what will you do, but also what would you say other stakeholders must do, and what the government will do to encourage kind of concerted actions of all of us. And please be short.
Yes.
Sorry.
That was hard. Dr. Vosner, you know that I consider your brain and brilliant analytics skills as a national treasure. So it is not what I will do, because with the presentation of the development report, you've said what our priorities should be. It is the question, how shall we do it? And in terms, since there was a talk about digitalization, two things. You know that we don't score well in usage of advanced digitalization, the tools, big data, cloud infrastructure, etc. I'm really proud that Slovenian Tourist Board, together with Ministry, managed to present the National Information Core for the big data creation and collection, which will enable similar impacts as we saw in Austria, so better management, better building harmony also within local communities with managing the tourist flows. However, yes, there are a lot of potentials to build on digital experiences furthermore. I'm really proud that we have digital giants like Arctur, for example, who is selling information, digital infrastructure, data collection and data management as a Slovenian digital product globally. But I'm also very proud of the local communities that understand that, digital should unite with the analog. And I would really like to put an example of Maribor, my home city, who experienced a really amazing growth in recent years, because the city is building itself and the community around the tourism. And the products we present to our guests are foremost the products for our local community experience that is there for the local people. And it is just a step to invite then guests to enjoy what we have to offer and the privilege we have to experience it. So I think I didn't answer the very complex question. However, I think I should stop to prevent being too long.
Okay. okay. The discussion will be long anyway, and there's a lot of uncertainty on EU level anyway. So yeah, there will be time. But nonetheless, Mr. Ažman, with regard to in the field of mobility, Eduardo in the beginning mentioned seamless mobility. That really matters when a tourist comes to a place like this and go around. What would you recommend to the government they should do? But also to the tourist industry, what kind of solutions, perhaps, something practical, perhaps not something that we can, introduce in 5 years' time, but things that are, that can create value even in the short term. What would be your recommendation?
Well, definitely the way sustainable mobility, but I think we also need to define this sustainability. At least for me, sustainability is not, I don't know, counting of gender-neutral toilets and putting them into some reports or something like that about statistics. It's really about making this business model sustainable in the sense that it is sustainable in the economic way. It can provide, it can generate profits in the long run without creating problems for the society and for other stakeholders. And with this understanding, I think it should be understandable that that's the opportunity, and that's probably the only way that we can aspire. But to be more concrete, what we can do in the term of transportation, definitely in Slovenia we are in the unfortunate situation that our public transportation system is not very effective. But to be honest, it's hard to make it this way because of the way we live in Slovenia. Actually, there are no major cities with millions of inhabitants, and basically we decided this way. We wanted to live deliberately this way with job opportunities also in other regions, not only in the main city, and that's why it is really. It's more difficult, and it is not easy to just adopt recipes from abroad. So we really need to develop our own solutions, at the local, at the regional, and also on the national level. Really concrete plans, but on the other hand, the municipalities are. We have 200 of them, or a little bit more, and that means that they are really small. There are maybe 5-6 people working for the local government, and including the mayor and the secretary. You cannot expect that they will develop very sophisticated mobility strategies, but on the other hand, they know the community, they know people, they know every problem they have in the local community, and they can contribute and make these generic plans a little bit more adapted to their needs. So my advice would really be the government, I think, should really provide not only financial support for these things to happen, but also practical support in terms of know-how. Actually, because we have to combine everything from public transportation combination actually with micromobility. With many hidden gems actually are accessible by bike, or at least by electric bike, and this is everything that we have to take into account. But there is probably no way around electrification of personal cars. This fleet has to be electrified, and but on the other hand, there are some great opportunities actually in this field, because as you all know, the renewable energies have also their problems. When the sun is shining, there's a lot of energy, but there's a problem if there's not enough energy, but there's also a problem if there's a lot of it. And tourism is actually at its peak in summer when there's really plenty of energy, and if the visitors would come by electric cars, and if we would be able to provide them with the necessary smart charging infrastructure that can be adapted, that would probably be a good solution. Yeah, there are probably also some other things that can be done. There are some, yeah. I also want to be.
It's the clock changed color, so. Sorry for interrupting you, but I really like what you said. It was what we decided for, in terms of public transport and the way how we do mobility, and I think I think it should be said in exactly that way, because it was a wrong choice. I think for many reasons, not least for tourism, but many other dimensions and consequences. And I think that's something that will need to be rethought. It won't be within this fora that kind of systemic solutions will be sought. But I think it's another opportunity for growth, value creation, because exactly as Mr. Ažman said, we need to find our own solutions, and those solutions can be sold to other parts of the world. Right. So the color changed, the clock changed color, but nonetheless, Eduardo, you started this panel, and I would like to wrap it up on your part as well. You are sitting at the EU level. What are the things you would argue are the things that we should be doing together so that we would be able to better target? And the word I would underline in particular is to future-proof what we are all doing, because I think from the top, if you will, even even as simple things as analytics and looking where one is, what the future scenarios and projections are, that's incredibly valuable. So what would you say, what we can do better together? Slovenia, Austria, for example, is, the collaborative cross-border collaborations, promotion like that, these are, I think, excellent examples of how we can be in a win-win world. So, just one last ask. Please wrap it up on an optimistic note. That's what we do. Yeah.
Well, maybe let's start. Look, I will compare it with someone climbing a beautiful mountain here in Slovenia. Okay, if we focus too much on the difficulties of the climb, you forget why you're climbing the mountain, the star that is guiding you, and your motivation to travel or to do that hike. So while focusing on the difficulties is important to solve them, we also have to inspire. We still at definitely a sector of people, of peace, and of happiness, and we should spread those values among everything. But since in the question you sent me, you say, please, and in the briefing this morning said, what are the biggest priorities at the European level? So we talk about all of them already: digital and green transition, strategic coordination and governance, connectivity and cross-border mobility, and maybe a little parenthesis here to say that 3 of the main sponsors of the Bled Strategic Forum are Microsoft, are Novartis, and are Porsche. Microsoft will tell us how are we going to work and how we're going to probably travel through digitalization. Novartis is going to tell us how long we're going to live, to be able to travel. And Porsche is going to tell us how are we going to move around, in which kind of means, and how fast. So my appeal to this room and to many others is to open our rooms. We're preaching always to believers. We're talking people that understand what we're talking about. We need to be confronted. We need to be also say, no, you're wrong. Eduardo, you're wrong. This is not going to work out because the mobility sector is actually working in the opposite direction of what you're saying. So I think we have a problem of being too exclusive, and we have to be very inclusive in tourism and start opening in a multi-sector, multi-layer. More priorities also resilience and support for recovery. We are not out of the woods. There will be something happening in the next 6 months and the next 6 months, so we also have to be prepared. Inclusive consultation and stakeholder engagement. Maybe the two things that I would like to remind is on behalf of our colleagues of the European Commission, and there is like a new sustainable tourism strategy undergoing. So for the first time, these should be coordinated from Brussels. That doesn't mean that they are going to prescribe to the member states what they should do, but at least it will be like a blueprint for all of us, to give direction. And last but not least, I think there is no more hope that see this room, full of people engaging. The Bled Strategic Forum, like flourishing, Slovenia dying of success, if you want. Okay, at least, this is a great start. Now we just have to engage more with our locals, engage more with our entrepreneurs, with our governance, and with everybody on politics. We always have to point politics when they are do something wrong. But there's a lot of positive done in this country and beyond. Positive on that. And Peter, last but not least, of course, it's up to us to make the change. I hate people saying someone who should do it for me and not. I think everybody has something to say and something to do in your little, medium, or big role. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. I'll just do the last sentence. Before I do, just don't stand up because Tina will take over because you will have the incentive to don't. I won't do a proper closure in terms of too much substance. There were some things that I think we should really note down in terms of the records and sustainability. I propose we discuss those over more at the terrace, but I will just, based on what Eduardo just now said, and combined with what Minister said in the beginning, he said, let's be good and true to each other. We add Eduardo's, we open up, and as Minister said, all will be good. Thank you very much.